to Seattle,
Yeah.
Washington, right?
What kind of chemicals are here and all that? Well, they were
is that
astounded.
90?
There's a basement of that, with a single.
I've never been
90s the
cross
northern
country.
route.
Shit like a
Never
garage
been
right
cross
there.
country. It's a
With
goal.
batteries
It's
down
a bucket list,
To have a problem. Yeah.
but kind
Yeah, so I ended
of.
up taking. Kevin,
Well,
I
at
was talking to his tenants,
6:37,
what his name was.
Charlie hasn't signed up, but I believe we have a quorum.
I said it.
So why don't we kick things off? Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Laconia Planning Board. I'm the chair. I need to note that this meeting will be held in person in the notice meeting room in accordance with New Hampshire RSA 91A, which is the right to know law. We have to have a quorum present here, but other members can participate via Zoom, and so can members of the public. So if you want to participate on Zoom, meaning you could add comments during a public hearing. The webinar ID is 822-3074-8034. And I guess they usually put that up on the screen anyway, right? To listen only, you can call 646-558-8656. All votes that will be taken this evening will be done by roll call vote. So we're going to start the meeting right now with Kalina Graham, our wonderful administrative assistant. She's going to call the roll for us all. Charlie!
I'm here.
Okay, he's here.
Rich McNeil,
Present.
Kirk Biati,
Here.
Brett Belville,
Present.
Mike Delvecchio.
Here.
Stacy Susie,
Here.
Sean McWilliamson. Scott, oh my God, Scott.
Present.
Sorry.
That's all right.
From that.
Thank you very much. Yes, I am present. Thank you. Charlie, where are you?
I'm in a town called Hampshire, Illinois.
Hampshire, Illinois. Is anyone with you? I think we have to ask you that.
Yeah, there are people all around me, but nobody with me.
Okay. Okay. Well, hopefully you get a motel room tonight with a shower. Okay. Anyway, where do we go? We pick up on this, call the order, then the roll. Kalina Graham is our recording secretary. Dean Trefethan is the director, and he is here, as well as Rob Mora, who's our senior planner. No presentations. This thing's going really well. Okay. 8.1 was withdrawn. Taken off the table, accepted June 1.
Do the minutes.
So we just need the public hearing to happen, right? Oh, the minutes. Were there any additions or corrections that needed to be made to the minutes that you all received?
I emailed Kalina about a vote that was miscounted.
Okay. Lena, did you
The original
make that
minutes.
correction? All right, that was very astute of you. Any other suggestions or changes? So I guess I'll declare the minutes accepted as amended. And I thank Secretary for his input. Okay, so where are we? PL 2013-0100 SP amended to 264 Lakeside Avenue. That is a very familiar address. Let's see. Oh, the Tower Hill Tavern. Review of request to amend the original approval to allow for indoor live music and DJs until closing time at 1 a.m. The amendment was approved on May 4th, 2021 by the planning board, contingent upon the application being brought back to the board for review in August, and the sound engineer findings that he was present last time, but he hadn't done his work, if I remember correctly. Is the application in order and ready for acceptance, Mr. Trefethan?
Yes.
I would entertain a motion to accept application PL 2013-011 SP amended to. Just say so.
So
moved.
said.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? We need to do a roll call. Colleen?
Scott McWilliams,
Yes.
Stacy Yes. Mike Delvecchio,
Yes.
Brett Belvin,
Yes.
Art Piatti,
Yes.
Rich McNeil,
Yes.
Charlie Sinclair,
yes,
Peter Burnett.
Yes. Okay, so the application has been accepted. I guess we'll hear from the applicant at this time. Good evening.
Evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the. Try and get this to work.
Yep. I have the problem too. There's a bill for it.
I think it's a trick. Nice. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the planning board. My name is John Bolton. I'm an attorney with the law offices of Hinckley Allen in Manchester, New Hampshire. I'm here representing the owner of the property as well as the applicant, Tower Hill Tavern LLC, and Mr. Anthony Santagate. Present with me this evening is Mr. Santagate as well as Megan Doptis, who's the general manager of the Tower Hill. As I think was referenced, this application is to amend the prior approval for this facility. Specifically, the amendment is to permit live music and DJs until closing time at 1 a.m. On May 4th, and I wasn't present at the May 4th meeting, but I did have the opportunity to watch the tape. At that meeting, approval was granted conditionally until August 3rd, until this meeting, to allow, as you referenced, Mr. Chairman, the conduct of a sound study. And in listening to and watching the tape of that May 4th meeting, to me, there seemed to be three issues that needed to be addressed in no particular order. Noise, noise, and noise. Those were the only issues that I heard during that meeting. And more importantly, that was the only condition of that conditional approval, was the conduct of the noise study. As was mentioned at that meeting, and to reiterate this evening, the applicant has made a substantial investment on the property with respect to the mitigation of noise coming from the property, including but not limited to the installation of windows, the installation of vestibules, and other sound mitigation measures such as spray applied foam
Air
installation,
conditioning, second floor.
air conditioning, et cetera. And my understanding is that expense is well into the six figures. With respect to the noise study, we were given an opportunity to review the study done by Reuter Associates dated July 26th, which indicates that the professional sound engineer visited the site on 2 times with the intent to measure the inside sound and then go outside and measure what the sound levels were outside and how
For the live band upstairs.
with various different noise sources. I think one night was a DJ, which if you've ever been to Tower Hill, and
Yeah. Well,
I
there's
hope you all do,
entertainment downstairs and upstairs sometimes. right? Yeah.
absolutely. But
Okay.
you will not find a busier night or louder night than karaoke night at Tower Hill Tavern. It's very popular. And that was actually, karaoke was on that one evening, the July 23rd.
Karaoke allowed in that zone. Sorry, Mr. Bolton.
That's okay.
Please continue.
It's okay.
It's just that Anthony's been in front of us like every meeting since January.
You can have as much fun with me as you want.
Oh, well, no, and you're doing a great presentation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Agree that the issue is the sound abatement and the report back from the
Right.
professional.
So, I'm assuming every member of the board has had the opportunity to review the report. In my opinion, and I don't think it's a stretch, the report is quite unequivocal. In the fourth paragraph of the report, the tests were inconclusive. I mean, again, the intent was measure the sound inside, go outside and see what it is at various locations outside. We were unable to, and I'm quoting the report, we were unable to generate enough sound within the venue to measure the sound level outdoors. So they tried to generate loud sound in the venue and see what it sounded like outside, and they couldn't hear anything outside.
And the inside was 90 dB.
I think he was using that as an example. I don't know if he actually got the sound level.
Oh, I
90
see.
dB is
Okay.
pretty loud,
Yeah.
I tell you. But in any event, I think it's important. We were unable to generate enough sound so that we could hear it outside. The high ambient sound levels in the vicinity of the venue, combined with the building upgrades, made the test signal indistinguishable outside of the building. Not the sound was low, the sound was tolerable. It was indistinguishable outside. So kudos to Mr. Sandegate. His money was well spent. It worked. It worked. The mitigation worked. Further in the report, levels at the public parking lot behind the venue were similar with or without music playing. So whether there was music in the building or not music in the building, it sounded the same outside. What does that tell you? Observe the following. These are specific observations by the independent engineer. At the intersection of Tower Street and Maple Street, the music was barely audible. 150 feet west along Tower Street. I think that's going up the hill of Tower Street in the vicinity of Lakeview Inn. Music was inaudible. Let me repeat that. In the vicinity of the Lakeview Inn, the music was inaudible. 150 feet north along Maple Street in the vicinity of Maple Moose Lodge, music was inaudible. In the final, next to last paragraph of the report, during the May 4th planning board meeting, I proposed that a sound level monitoring system be installed in the venue. However, based on my observations and attempts to measure noise from the venue, that seems unnecessary and impractical. The upgrades to the building are working as intended, resulting in low exterior sound levels. It couldn't be more clear.
Yes.
Couldn't be more clear, in our opinion, with all due respect. We respectfully request that the board grant the amendment to allow the live music and DJs till 1 a.m. We've complied with the condition at the May 4th meeting. And, you know, as noted in the planner staff report by your planner, you know, it's a question of, will the board allow operations that would be similar to any like establishments in the city? And I would respectfully suggest to you that you don't want to treat this business any different than any other business in the city. And he did know, and he said, you know, unless whether the location of the business is unique to warrant continued special conditions. Well, the location is in the commercial resort zoning district. If anything, there should be not more strict noise there. This is where the activity for the tourist entertainment is supposed to be.
Yep.
So we thank you for your consideration of this matter. I know it's been going on a while, but we encourage you to grant the requested amendment to the application. If you have any questions for myself or my client, we'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Any questions for Mr. Bolton? Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, you
Sorry.
do have a
Yes.
question? Go ahead.
Sorry. Were there no live bands this past few months that the sound engineer could come and listen?
I don't know the answer to that. I know in the, I'm just going by the report. He went there 2 evenings. One of them had karaoke, which I can tell you from personal experience, the karaoke is as loud as the live bands. But he also indicates that he couldn't generate enough noise in the facility to hear it outside. So to me, that implies that there was some sort of, he was trying to generate noise. I don't know how he was doing it in the facility over the loudspeakers or whatever. I mean, they have a sound system in there, but I mean, you know, it states right in there, we were unable to generate, unless the sound engineer is in a band, we were unable to generate enough sound within the venue to measure the sound levels outdoors. So I think he tried to make it as loud as he could in there and he still couldn't hear it outside. It's the way I read that.
Yeah. Did you have a follow-up?
My other question, I read about, there was an event on Sunday morning and I was just curious whether there was any flack over that. Cause I was just curious on.
This past Sunday morning?
No, this was a few weeks ago. There was, I think it was similar to karaoke. Yes. Did you get any complaints at all from that or?
It was church in session at this.
I understand it was I understand there was a popular event.
That's why I was nervous about wondering.
For the record,
if,
I didn't attend. it.
People.
Their mascara runs.
But I would answer that question a different way. Can always find somebody to complain.
Oh, well, I didn't know if the neighbors were at the doorway going, this is ridiculous. They all went, that's awesome.
I've, just for the record, I've gone up there before Anthony did the mitigation and built the, the vestibule and all that. He had entertainment downstairs and it was barely audible at Doe Ave, that first street. I mean, you could hear music playing somewhere, but you know, and it was also only like 10 o'clock at night, so. The report from the sound engineer was the missing piece. We probably would have taken a vote in favor of it last month,
Right.
if indeed we'd had that report in hand, and now we do, so. Are there any other questions for Mr.
I have a
Bolton?
question for staff.
Sure.
Director Trefethen. The results of the report to me are somewhat inconclusive. For a variety of reasons, they were not able to get accurate measurements because of background noise from various sources. And so I don't know if that means the results of the report aren't accurate or how much noise was actually being generated. But that aside, are you aware of any complaints above and beyond what you might consider normal as far as noise complaints?
Since the May meeting, when you gave them the essentially 3 months to operate, I am not aware of any complaints. I know that there was some confusion during Motorcycle Week concerning hours of operation. I will tell you straight out, those don't count because it was Motorcycle Week, and we all know what that means. And you know, it is what it is. But outside of Motorcycle Week, I'm not aware of any. I did contact police department to see if there were any noise complaints or since the May 4th meeting, and the police department was not able to get back to me for tonight's meeting. They're still compiling that information. So inconclusive on that. But we have talked with police department on multiple occasions about things going on in the area there, and Tower Hill Tavern was one of those things that we talked about, and they had not indicated as we went along that there had been any complaints. So that's inconclusive as well, but you know, it is what it is. Mr. Chairman, if I may, I do want to point out, and I don't know if you want to take public comment first or how you want to do this, but the sound engineer is on the line on Zoom. If you would like to go there and ask questions, or and maybe some of these questions are more better aimed at Eric than at me.
Okay. Eric, are you there?
I am. Hello.
We're looking at your report right now. Let me, just to clarify, the statement was that you were unable to generate enough sound inside the building for it to be audible at your checkpoints outside. Is that correct?
That's right. The sound we were generating was a random noise, a pink noise signal through the house PA system, the built-in PA system.
Like white noise?
Yeah, very similar. Yeah. And the intent, you know, with what we discussed at the last meeting a month ago was the concept of establishing an offset between inside and outside so that we can monitor inside and know what it would be outside. Right. In the report where I put 90 dB, that was arbitrary. That wasn't the level that we generated. I think we got it up pretty close to 100 in there. And there's so much other noise in that environment, mostly from mechanical systems on the roof of the There are air handlers on the roof of the arcade that's next door there. And then, the kitchen fans and all the other window air conditioners and things, that it's already a fairly loud environment around the back of that building. And I couldn't get enough noise inside to measure a level that was high enough outside for a conclusive measurement. So my hope was to only do that one site visit, and since that was inconclusive, I went back during an event, the karaoke, which I understand is kind of the most lively type of event there, to get some additional data. And so those were the two site visits that are mentioned.
Not for nothing, but was the air conditioning on?
In Tower Hill Tavern?
Yeah.
Yeah, I only went inside during my first visit, and it was on.
Okay.
The second visit, I didn't go inside during the event, but I assume it was on. There were hundreds of people in there.
Okay. We can follow up with Anthony on that, but just that part of the problem for having bands upstairs in the past has been that they prop the doors open for ventilation.
Oh yeah,
So
the
we wanna
doors
make
were.
sure that they don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah, the doors were not open. So when I was there for the first site visit, which was July 6th, the new vestibule in the back corner closest to Tower Avenue there had just been finished, I think, that day. So there are now two doors that you have to go through, in sequence to get out of the building. And that's the case at both ends of the venue.
Right.
So when I was out during the karaoke event, that seemed to be working well. Occasionally enough people would be coming and going that both doors would open. You could hear a little bit more music, but frankly, the people talking on the deck were a lot louder than the music coming out of the building. So I think what he's done is very effective. At least on the back of the building. The windows aren't installed. Most of the windows aren't yet installed on the front of the building along Lakeside Ave. So that, that's a kind of a different story, but I understand most of the concern is behind the building.
Okay. Are there any questions for Eric while we've got him? Okay. Well, thank you very much.
My pleasure. I'll
So,
stick around in case anything else comes up.
We'll open a public hearing, 6:59 PM Eastern Daylight Time. Any abutters wish to be heard?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. My name is Ethan Wood with Normandin, Cheney and O'Neill. I represent Brames Incorporated, an abutter to the property. We want to note that the mitigation efforts that Mr. Sandegate has undertaken appear to be successful. My clients have no objection to the level of the noise over the past 3 months and appreciate the efforts that Mr. Sandegate has taken. With that said, to the extent that there are issues in the future, they would like to just clarify what the board's position is with regard to enforcement, if there were to be issues in the future.
Well, that's a good question for Dean. So what would your answer to that be? I mean, are we at the inaudible at certain distance standard right now? Wasn't that the original?
I
It was
mean,
supposed to be inaudible at 50 feet or something,
it
right?
was supposed to be inaudible at the property line.
So what's the condition in your report? In your staff recommendation?
We are not establishing a condition along those lines based on the fact that the sound engineer could not discern the music at the property line or further away, that it doesn't seem to make sense to put some type of arbitrary limitation that we don't know what it is because we couldn't discern it at this point in time.
Okay.
So the process would be if a neighbor felt that the noise being generated was too loud, they would make a noise complaint to the police department, just like any other neighbor to any other situation. And then we're under the noise ordinance, which, as you know, leaves the enforcement to the police department. And it is their judgment when they show up on the scene as to whether the noise is too loud or not. And they will take action accordingly, which is, I mean, the way it's been for quite some time in the city, and the way it is for other businesses of this type, or even private individuals that decide to hold a party or whatever, you know.
Well, there's probably a volume knob somewhere.
Right. Well,
there.
right. And then the follow-up to that would be, periodically, we can get reports from the police department on noise complaints.
Right.
We need to do that anyway because of our short-term lodging ordinance,
Yep.
to make sure that, we don't have problems on those properties. And then it becomes a standard, site plan violation if there are complaints, and then, we would have a warning, and then, we would keep escalating the enforcement to the point where, if necessary, the city would have to go to court to get court, either injunction or fines or whatever the court decides to do.
So there will not be a condition regarding the audibility, if that's a word, or the sound pressure levels, or anything to do with. In other words, no objective standard. It will be in the conditional approval. You're saying you're going to treat it as a normal, everyday noise complaint from a neighbor.
That is our recommendation, yes.
And that would make sense in light of the expert's report,
Yes.
where, his results are inconclusive because they really couldn't detect the sound outside because of the mitigations that had already gone. The upstairs was once a wide open arcade-like setup. I think at one point they have slot cars or something up there. So when they had fans, of course, the windows would all be open, the doors would be open. It was loud. So, all right. Are there any?
So I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, I'm just seeking clarification now with regard to that. Is the existing site plan condition, I believe it's 2AN or 2N, is that still in place, or is the board modifying that in this approval?
Well, what is pending is an amendment to the prior approval that had never been complied with, right?
Yes, that's correct. And I'm just trying to clarify based on the conversation that you just had. with
And
Mr.
it says, number 4 on the staff, Roman 2:1, subpart 4, all remaining conditions from February 5, 2013 approval still apply.
Perfect. Thank you very
Does
much,
that cover
Mr.
it?
Chair. It does cover it.
Okay. Thank you so much.
We appreciate your time.
Always good to see you, Attorney Wood. Are there any other rebutters that would like to be heard regarding Tower Hill? Any members of the public? Mr. Moore, do we have any people in queue?
Hi, good evening. Am I audible?
Yes.
Hey, that's excellent. I appreciate the opportunity to speak.
Who is this?
No, my name is Dennis Golubuski. I live on Foster Avenue. I've been here 8 years now.
Yep.
Accolades to the bar district for doing what they've done. It's the right thing to do. I do have a couple of little issues. Mr. Bolton seemed to make a lot of hey, that it was a lot of money. It's cost doing business. It's like putting in fire hoses and smoke detectors. You can't make all the noise. I'm glad the bar district did what they did, but how much it costs doesn't have any effect on this. The true thing, the true measure is what the sound engineer discovered. And that's fabulous. There were 2 times he was there, 2 times he did not discover anything. So we've spent a lot of money for 2 evenings to determine what has been a long-term issue between some of the abutters and neighbors and businesses and the bar district. Would it not be sensible to create that level of, if in the bar it's at 100 decibels, things have to get turned down? A couple extra dollars of determining that, to me, doesn't seem to be onerous.
Well,
Third-
Dennis,
Yes,
if indeed you feel that the noise is excessive, then you would call the police and the police would come out and determine whether it was a violation of the noise ordinance.
now, that was going to be my third comment. I will let you continue.
Well, I didn't have anything else to add. I
So
just was
for the
pointing out
last
that was,
handful of years, I have made countless calls to Laconia PD. I've even told them, look, it's not important, but it's loud. I need to voice a complaint. There has never been a report gotten back to me or anything that said anything other than, we don't find it too loud. I find that an issue. And I know that's not going to be very popular. I don't like saying it. To have the police deal with this year after year after year and simply say, it's not too loud, I question that. If I'm wrong, then I'm wrong, and I do apologize. But for that, that's a big bone of contention, and I will leave my comments at that.
okay, thank you. Are there any questions for Dennis? All right. Well-
Wait, let's ask Dennis how it's been for the last 2 months, 3 months. Is it still bothering him? Do
So
you still hear the noise, Dennis?
on Foster Avenue, the specific part of Tower Hill, it is barely an issue. It's barely audible. I don't have an issue with that. So for the last 2 or 3 months, it's fine again. But let's say in the future, stuff happens. Suddenly the windows are always left open. All I'm asking for is a means to measure this and a means for the public to question this, other than going to Laconia PD, who has never responded anything other than, it's fine, it's not too loud. Right
Okay.
now, I have no issue with it, but I don't want to rubber stamp something going into the future, which then may affect other licensing things that are going to happen on that property.
I don't know what you mean by rubber stamp, but this board has reviewed this application 4 times this year.
Right.
Thoroughly, and we've heard from the butters, we've heard from you.
Yeah.
My response to your query is, if it's too loud, you call the police.
I
It's-
guess I will have to accept that. I'm not happy with it. There is other business, there are other speakers. Thank you.
What else would you suggest that would work?
There are 2 things. First thing that was touched upon, the sound engineer said he'd been there twice, didn't see a need to set a loudness level in the bar that would then spill out outside. Why can't it exist? We've gone all of this frickin' way. Eric measures the number inside, and it's fine. If it doesn't get over 100, which is where he was at, everybody's happy. If it gets to 100 and the windows are open, again, I'm not saying Mr. Sandegate would let that happen, but let's say it does. Once, I don't care. It's when it happens night after night after night, that's the issue.
Well, I understand that. Have you read the report?
No, I didn't know about the meeting until 6:33 this evening.
Well, we're glad you found out about it.
Yeah, you bet. So I have not had much of a chance.
Let
to
me
look
read
at the
you, let
report.
me read you this from the report, and maybe this will explain it a little better. He said, oh, I lost it now. Where does he say we were unable to generate? Oh, okay. Okay, so he said the tests were inconclusive. We were unable to generate enough sound within the venue to measure the sound level outdoors. The high ambient sound levels in the vicinity of the venue, combined with the building upgrades, made the test signal indistinguishable outside the building. So he does not note what the sound pressure level was on the inside. What he said was, it was loud inside, and when they went outside, they were unable to distinguish the sound coming from the venue because of all the other ambient noise. There's compressors and heating
I
systems.
live here. I'm very aware of
They're like
that.
in your backyard. So, I mean, we absolutely understand your point.
Yes.
And we have discussed this quite a few times. But the way we left it at the end of the last meeting was, if Anthony went through the sound pressure level test with an expert, then we would consider approving it, and the conditions would still be in place from the prior approval, which would
Sure,
include the reports to the police about the sound being audible beyond the property line.
I'm fine with that, as long as the public has a means to question something that might happen time and time again. Bike week, who cares? It's loud here. There are other, 6 times a year, the 4th of July, Labor Day, it's going to be loud. So as long as there's a means for me to communicate with somebody and to voice an issue, if it comes up, it may never come up.
Okay. Well, I think you would call the planning department.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you bet.
if I may, Mr. Chairman, so let me just clarify a little bit of what I said earlier. So the official way to make a complaint about noise is at the police department. There is no other official
Okay.
way. So I would strongly suggest to anybody about any noise issue in the city that they call the police department. It will be on their log. Whether there's an official report or official action taken is another matter, but it will at least be on their log.
You bet.
I would encourage anyone, if it's a repetitive situation for a business, to also call the planning office when you have the opportunity. We're not going to be there, trust me, 11 o'clock Saturday night. So, there's no sense in calling us, but Monday morning, feel free to give us a call. And if we go back through the police logs and find that it is a repetitive situation, then we're into the same situation that I described before.
Right.
So maybe that clarifies the
That
complaint process just a
gives
little
an
bit.
avenue if there's issues. We may never have to. I don't think we will. Certainly the bar district's done a great job over the last handful of months. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Thanks for joining us tonight. Are there any other members of the public that would like to be heard regarding Tower Hill Tavern? Any others? Mr. Moore, anybody online?
Yep.
Okay.
Is this me?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if they're listening.
Hello,
Hello, can you hear me?
absolutely. Who
Okay.
is this?
This is Michael Ames. for the
Oh, hi,
Half-
Mike.
Hi, how you doing?
Just
Uh,
Ducky.
Great. So I'm one of the abutters. Me and my brothers own the Half Moon Motel, which is right adjacent to Anthony's business. And I just wanted to commend him for what he's done. Seems like everything's been what we've asked for years and the past few months, and hopefully it'll continue. But I do want to make a couple comments. One is for 7 years, we did call the police all the time and we got nowhere with them. And I think I agree with Dennis that it was a real problem asking them because they didn't seem to want to deal with one business against another. They felt like they were middlemen and it was a real problem. No matter, even if the building, there were times, and I'm not exaggerating, our cottage windows were shaking from loud rock bands. They'd come and go, man, it's okay. It's a business. It's Weir speech. That was always their answer. It's Weir speech. It's another business. This is the way it is. So they never did anything. That's why we're here. That's why this whole thing's taken place, because they never did anything. Anthony never did anything. And now he's done something, and hopefully it's all great. But for instance, I just wanted to read this. This is the noise ordinance, chapter 167 of the city code. It stipulates that it is unlawful for any person or corporation to make any loud, unreasonable noise or any noise which would annoy, disturb, injure, or endanger the comfort, repose, health, peace, safety, convenience, welfare, and prosperity of a reasonable person within the city limits. The police never even read their own city chapter ordinance. So I think I'm just agreeing with Dennis that, we still are skeptical about the police, but if everything keeps going the way it's going, we'll never call them. So, but now I understand you're saying that we should call you guys on a Monday morning to say it was really loud all weekend. So that's what we'll do, but hopefully we'll never have to.
I think the suggestion was if you have multiple complaints that we would then inquire of the police department, and because they log all the complaints, even if the officer doesn't take any action. So
Right.
that has always been the way it's supposed to be. And there's really nothing else that can be done. There's no technological solution for it. As the report states, there wasn't enough sound identified coming from Tower Hill Tavern that was any louder than the ambient noise. And so therefore there was no point in doing what had been proposed, I think at an earlier meeting, that there be some sort of SPL meter out there. And we're glad that you commend Anthony for what he's done.
Yeah, we understand. Yeah.
We like it when the neighbors are getting along.
Oh, yeah. If he continues doing what he's doing, you'll never hear from any of us again, hopefully. But again, the only thing I'd say about that report is to say a karaoke night is as loud as a rock band is really that's like, come on, give me a break. A rock band is a lot louder than a karaoke band, but whatever, it is what it is, and we'll see what happens. So far, so good.
The only difference with a live band is the bass and the drums. Usually the sound, the lower frequencies especially, carry. So I know at Meadowbrook that whenever they have hip hop bands, the neighbors complain because of the bass lines.
Right.
So there may be occasions when it will seem too loud. The other thing too is, you could always just go down and talk to Anthony about it and work something out. So But anyway, thanks for calling in. Are there any questions for Mr. Ames? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Are there any other members of the public that wish to be heard? Mr. Moore, do we have anybody out in the ether?
Dennis would like to speak again.
I think we've already heard from Dennis. Dennis, what did you have to add? Something new?
No, not at all. I'm done.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Anybody else wish to be heard? Sensing none, I'll close the public hearing at 7:22. And we'll ask Mr. Trefethan to give the staff report, please.
So as noted in the staff report, you had the report from the consultant. The improvements have been made to the building. Rob and I had a tour of the building during motorcycle week. Most of the improvements had already been done at that point in time. You know, we are recommending that you approve the amended site plan to allow the indoor music to 1 a.m., which would be like similar to any other establishment in the city that does the same kind of thing. I am, and you can, of course, or the two other things here, obviously, we've had the third-party review from Eric, and he is not recommending any real-time monitoring system. So the two items listed as number 1 and 2 there under the previous board action, I believe, are moot at this point in time.
1A and 1B.
Yeah.
Okay, yes, I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah. And then number 2 is kind of repeat of B, but
I thought
not to beat a dead horse about the ordinance, but and I understand the level of subjectivity that exists presently with the ordinance. You know, we are very aware of that, not just in this business situation, but across the city and a number of other situations. However, there is a solution to this. I don't think it's a simple solution, but there is a solution to this, and that is a change to the ordinance. But that is the city council. It's not this board. It is not the planning department. The noise ordinance is not part of the zoning ordinance. It is a separate ordinance of its own. So it's completely under the control of the city council. And I would highly recommend people reach out to their city councilors and discuss whether they want to do some form of amendment to the noise ordinance. And as a planning department, we'd be more than happy to work with the city council on that in any way that we can. But you know, I do want to recognize the frustration with the current noise ordinance, and there's a level of frustration across the board. So
is there a separate definition of like nuisance? Is there a nuisance ordinance as well? Because in some municipalities, that is the operant ordinance, because that would include, you know, repeated
I mean,
noise.
we have ordinances about, you know, drunkenness and lewd behavior, and it's, you know, the whole list of
Cattle
things,
theft
the
and-
whole list of things that go on and on and on. And, you know, we do have, you know, comments in the ordinance about a nuisance, you know, properties, buildings, but not so much businesses per se.
Right.
So anyway, I just, you know, there is some potential for change here, but it's not with this board per se. Having given that, we recommend that you amend the site plan to allow indoor music till 1 a.m.
This would be an amendment to the February 5th, 2013
Correct.
site
You
plan.
know, we have under section 2, there is some
Other
things that we are kind of addition to and supplemental to what had previously been approved. I will point out that on the original February 5th, 2013 approval, under the number 2 other conditions, there are a couple that do go away. Specifically L, which is the part that we're amending, i.e. there will be live music will be allowed to 1 a.m. 365 days a year. And I would highly recommend that you also eliminate I, which talks about the noise at 50 feet from the property line, which.
I'm not finding this.
No, this is on the previous, the previous. I'm doing this verbally.
Oh,
so-
you're coming off the 2013.
Yeah,
That's right. Okay, so it's not in the packet.
As you know, the sound engineer was out and could not distinguish whether it was 50 feet from the property line or 150 feet up the road or whatever. And also, as I mentioned to you previously, that number I on the previous thing is ambiguous because it doesn't say at a distance of 50 feet of which side of the property line. So I don't know what that means. Is it the Ames side of the property line or is it the Santagate side of the property line? It doesn't say. At any rate, you can't distinguish the
Gotcha.
music at any time. So I would say that I and L under the previous thing go away and are supplanted with the amendment.
I and L would be eliminated, revoked, and then we would then substitute the conditions found at Roman 2 in the staff report.
Correct.
Okay,
And the overall live music to 1 is part of the application.
yeah, I don't see that here.
That's up in the project description.
Oh, gotcha. Previous one. Okay. Well, we've had our public hearing. Is anybody of a mind to make a motion on this one?
I have a quick question
Sure.
from Mr. Senegi. I think we discussed it at one of the many other meetings, but the new windows, they don't open, right? Right, correct. So that would allay a lot of these anxieties about, well, it's good now, hopefully it stays that way. You can't open the windows. So I'm gonna make a motion then, unless somebody else has a question.
I was
No?
Thinking of, we can do discussion amongst the staff.
Okay.
I hate to drag them back next year, but I was thinking of giving them another year in case there are problems with Foster Avenue and the neighbors. We could
You
address
mean
it.
give them approval for just 1 year?
I'm thinking that way, yes. The
All right.
90-day plan worked
What
quite
would
well.
what would the advantage be?
He has to do good to keep the neighbors happy.
But what we're hearing is he's already done that.
Yeah, but like Foster Avenue said, I want to guarantee this and stay this way.
Well,
That's our guarantee.
that's,
Yeah.
again, that's, we don't make guarantees. There are no guarantees. There can't be. It's human behavior here.
Mr. Bolton.
Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
Yeah, I think there in the staff report, there's a reference all final approval expire 1 year. I think that's the if you don't pull a building permit within 1 year, you know, if you got a site plan
Correct.
approval for development. So I don't think it's applicable here. The comment about making the applicant come back in a year, to see if he does good. Well, I think that's been demonstrated, Mr. Chairman. And there are certainly mechanisms under the town ordinances, whether it's the noise ordinance or other mechanisms that somebody could come in and is violating either the letter or the spirit of their approval, but to make this applicant come back a year, I mean, you don't do that, to my knowledge, with other business. I mean, he has licenses that get renewed every year, and maybe that's a mechanism that you could address if there are issues that come up. But I think this approval is an approval, and it shouldn't go away after a year unless you're going to start doing that with every approval that you grant in the town, because you're not sure somebody's going to do something they said they're going to do. And And if anything, this applicant has already demonstrated that.
So, Mike, I guess what I would say too is what we are doing tonight, the motion would be to amend the approval, the 2013 conditional use permit, right? And we're adding some conditions to it. So it's already been in effect for what, 8 years? And now he's filing in compliance and he's got new standards, new conditions based upon what we're hearing. The current situation is, so
And I think Mr. Bell, when I first stood up, he kind of stole my thunder. The windows can't open. So even if he wanted to open them, he can't. So once the windows are there, they can't open. And in the summer, he's going to run the air conditioning and in the winter, he's going to run the heat. I mean, that's,
yes, I guess.
you know, and again, I go back to the SOM report. You couldn't distinguish the noise from inside the facility above the ambient noise. And the only specific ambient noise I heard referenced by the sound engineer was the air handling at the arcade. Are you gonna shut the arcade down at a certain hour? I mean, it's a slippery slope. We can go down here.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome. All right, any other questions for staff or the applicant? Right? I guess the chair would then recognize Mr. Belleville for his motion-making talents.
And now I forgot what I was gonna say. All right,
You were gonna.
so
go-
I'm gonna make a motion that we approve PL 2013-0100 SP Amendment 2, which in effect replaces section L from the 2013 site plan approval.
I and L.
And we are eliminating I, which was the description from 50 feet for the sound levels or whatever from the 2013 with the staff recommendations.
Okay. Is there a second for Mr. Belleville's motion?
I'll second that.
Right. Any more discussion? You sure? Okay,
Mr. Chair, point of order.
sure.
I am an alternate. Do I need to be seated as a regular member to
Yes,
fully vote
yep,
this evening?
yes, you will. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I rely heavily on staff for quorum because I can't count past 4. So it's just a birth defect. All right, any other discussion? All right, can we have a roll call on the motion, please?
Charlie St. Clair.
Charlie, wake up. Mr. St. Clair,
He's not. Votes yes.
he texted you? Okay,
I had trouble getting the audio. Yes, I vote yes.
yes, okay.
McNeil.
Thank you for your patience.
Capriati,
Yes.
Brett Melville,
Yes.
Mike Lovett,
Yes.
Stacy Susie,
Yes.
Scott McWilliam,
Yes.
Peter Burnett.
Yes. All right, it's unanimous. The motion passes. Thank you, Anthony, for being.
Thank you very much.
patient with us. You know, sometimes it takes a little longer.
He has some karaoke videos. You wanna do it?
It's too loud.
Maybe I'll come up and do some karaoke sometime. Oh, that was yours. Sorry.
Okay.
All right, please. Damn things. Wait a minute. How do I get back to? All right. We'll find it. It looks like we are at PL 2021-0097 SP and 0098 CUP. Performance zoning? Is that what that is? Perf zone?
Yes.
50 Church Street, proposal to convert building from school to residential units up to 14. Now, is the application in order and ready for acceptance, Mr. Trefetha?
Yes.
Have a motion, please.
I'll make a motion to accept
application PL 2021-0097 SP and 0098 CUP.
Motion by the chief. Is there a second? Second, Mr. McNeil. Any discussion? May we have a roll call vote, please?
Scott McLean,
Yes.
Jason Susie,
Yes.
Michael Vickers,
Yes.
Brett Bellarmine,
Yes.
Rick Biotti,
Yes.
Rich McNeil,
Yes.
Charlie St. Clair,
Yes,
Yes. Thank you, Quinn. All right. It's been accepted. All right, okay. So when we hear from the applicant, you look familiar. What's your name again?
Well, I promised I wasn't gonna come back, but it doesn't seem to be working very well.
They keep
For the-
dragging you back.
Right, for the
Right.
record, Stephen Smith, Steve Smith and Associates, now a division of Du Bois and King. I'm here tonight representing K and M Holdings, which is the applicant. I'm also representing the city of Laconia, which is the owner of the property. The former Holy Trinity School.
St. John's.
Hmm?
I can still call it St. John's.
Well, you're a local, so you probably would.
I still call Irwin's Grand Union.
I hear you. So you just blew my train of thought here.
I am
Peter.
sorry. It's what
Uh-huh.
happens when two old men get talking.
Nick Schedule from our office was here on the application for the conditional use permit under the urban commercial zone because we could not meet the parking setback from a boundary line of 10 feet to get the parking in to support the building. That is the reason, basically the reason for the conditional use permit. He came before the board with that application. In that setback is along Messer Street. It's not along the single-family residence that's just beyond the property, north of the site. And across the street from Messer Street is an 8-unit, it says 4 to 8 unit apartment complex, which abuts on the other side on Messer Street. So this is in the urban commercial zone. It is a lot that was subdivided out by the city along with the rectory, which has been sold, and that's being occupied, I believe, as single-family residential. And then the parking in the rear is going to be city parking, I believe. And our piece is the 29,988 square foot piece of property that goes along with the school, which fronts on both Church Street and Messer Street. On the westerly side between the church and the school, there is a right-of-way over this property, which is the access to the parking facility in the back.
Yep.
It's a shared right-of-way with, I believe it's ending up being a shared right-of-way with all three properties, the church, the residential house, the school building, and in general, the city for the parking lot in the rear. Our proposal is to convert this facility into residential. Our agreement under the sales agreement with the city council was that we would do at least a minimum of 12 units within the structure. Our proposal is to remove the gym in the rear. That will come off, and I hope, I apologize, I didn't get the elevations until today. I don't know if everybody has had an opportunity. I brought some copies if you haven't got them on your computer or haven't got them. I have some bigger ones if you have small ones. Well, I'll just pass them.
Well, it's right up on this, we have them right
Copies, I
up on
like
the
it.
screen. Yeah.
Okay.
And
Yep. Thank you
I've
for
got
that.
some, I'm not sure I have enough for everybody to have one, but I brought some extras. So the proposal is to remove the rear portion of the building, which is a former school gymnasium.
Yep.
Construct a new 2-story addition in the rear area of where the former gym was, which will end up being 4 units, 2 on the first floor, 2 on the second floor. And then there'll be a rehab, a reconstruction of the front area, which is 2 stories. And it'll be actually 3 stories with the basement, but there'll be 4 units on the first floor, 4 units on the second floor. That's a total of 12 in the basement. We have 1 unit in the basement right now, not really sure that that's going to be a marketable. So it would be at least 12 units, but it could be 14 if it's marketable.
Right.
That's still out to question. But we have prepared the site plan to support parking for 14 units to meet the ordinance. So we've added 22 parking spaces. We've changed the access for the residential use of the property off from Messer Street to get it off near the lights on Church. Where there is an access there now, but it was a service access for the school originally. We propose an access there.
I'm sorry, you're talking about putting a curb cut in on Messer and going in that way
Yep, if you,
along the back property line. Is that what I'm looking at?
yes, you are.
Okay,
Yeah, you've got a nice picture there.
listen, you
This will get us away from the intersection, get us away from the
Yep.
lights. Take pressure off that access point that goes to the parking for the city in the back.
Okay.
We have a buffer between our parking and that access, so you can't drive through our parking lot to get out to the city lot.
You're gonna save the street trees on Church Street?
On Church Street, yes,
Yeah.
I believe the trees on Church Street are okay. There's a couple trees along Messer Street that'll be removed, and we're proposing to put 2 other trees back.
Because Charlie St. Clair called me today and said, are they gonna save the birch tree? And I said, well, it's a street tree, it's there.
Well, I don't think the birch tree is on
That's on.
Church Street.
It's on the Messer Street.
It's on
side.
Messer Street. No, that's in the parking lot. That has to go. It has to be removed.
Oh.
Unfortunately.
You can't work around that?
He can have a piece of it.
No, quite frankly, we can't get the parking that's necessary for the units that are being proposed.
Okay,
Um,
well, I promised Charlie I would try.
And well, we actually try too, but there comes to a point where it can't be done and meet standards and do the project. We're saving the trees out front, the more mature trees along Church Street. I apologize, Charlie. We're making drainage improvements on the site. We have some new catch basins and pipes going into a treatment facility at the end of the parking lot. There was a question at I believe at the preliminary review relative to the catch basin that's right behind the dumpster. We're going to fit that with our eliminator type system, which is a downcast pipe. So it acts like a oil water separator. It keeps stuff out of the drainage itself. You can capture it and remove it. In addition, we were asked to put a new pipe out onto the shared access way to the city parking lot in the back, replace that. And that's been put on the plan. We're also installing a stockade fence along the boundary line between this property and the single-family residential property in the back or on the side there. We maintain the required 5 feet for the access road through there. We're proposing lighting. We have a lighting plan in there. The lighting's going to come off the building for the parking area in the entrance, downcast lighting to meet city standards. And basically, I've reviewed the staff's report. We don't have any exception basically with the recommendations, but Kevin would like to talk about the dates that are in here for completion, I believe. At the
Okay.
appropriate time. I don't know if you want him to talk about that now,
Sure.
Kevin.
Chairman Board, for the record, I'm Kevin Morissette.
Good evening, Kevin.
So just I just had the final plan's October. We should really bump that out to November at least, just getting everybody to perform and the time frame is kind of tight these days. And the completion date, it's actually going to be done in 2 phases. And that doesn't really say that the way I read this. So the completion date should be pushed out till maybe November for phase 1, which is phase 1 is the existing original building, which will have either 8 or 10 units in it. And then I need to,
When are you gonna do the demo on
the demo is going to be done very soon.
so that'll be first.
That's going to be first. They're going to go in and do the demo, do the asbestos removal. And then we'll, at that time, I'll probably put in the foundation for the building that's going to be added onto the back.
Right.
Only because we're going to be there, it doesn't make sense to fill it and then dig it back out. So we'll probably put that foundation in, but that building won't start. I have 2 years to start that building. So that should say that somewhere.
Kevin, within your agreement with the city?
Yes, that was with the city council that I would have 2 years to start the addition part. It probably isn't going to be that
What do you
long.
mean, part of the purchase and sale agreement?
Correct.
Oh, all right.
So they want,
So you'll demo the gym, renovate the school building, and then be building in another phase? for
correct.
the-
The-
Okay.
The other phase will be built.
And I think he said that the foundation for the addition will be done.
We'll
post
probably
demo.
do that with
Yeah,
the
that
demo
makes-
part only because
sure.
it makes
Makes
sense.
sense.
Because you'll pull the old foundation right out.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But so I just wanted to,
Completion 11/21, and then what was the other?
so the completion on the phase 1 should be like November 2022. And then I have 2 years to start the other building based on the purchase and sales agreement.
So that would be 23.
Yeah, 23 to start it and then, you know. a
So
year.
when you said November earlier, you meant November of 22, not 21.
Well, no, I want to
The
move the final
plans.
plans out another
Oh,
30
plans,
days.
Right, gotcha. So
And
that
then-
was plans, not completion.
Right, and then the completion, I want to move out to November of 2022 for phase 1. Just wanted to clarify
So
that.
the Church Street one that you did further up looks very nice. How many units was that?
That was 12 units in the existing brick building, and then there's going to be another 4 units built out back, and it had 16 garages.
Are
So
the
that's
12 full right now?
fully occupied, yes. Self-paying tenants.
I
and
have to ask because my. entire
Self-paying tenants,
neighborhood's
and this
being
is going to be
evicted.
self-paying tenants
Yeah,
project too.
it's true.
So I just have a question for Dean. On the impact fee, is that for the project or for each unit?
Entire project.
That's for the project.
Okay, that's what I just,
Rehabbing.
yeah, no, I just wanted to make sure. Okay, I guess that's all I had.
Kevin, thank
Just
you
those
so
things.
much.
Thank you.
It's always a pleasure to work with you and Stephen. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Smith?
I have a question.
Yes, please ask.
I know you had mentioned it. I'm just asking for clarification on how you plan to limit access to the city parking lot.
Yeah,
That's it
There's a
behind-
buffer, there's a break there of about 8 or 9 feet of lawn and grassed area. The pavements won't come together there. We have a dumpster out back. The dumpster will be accessible through that right of way, which is also our use for the road to
Right.
get to the dumpster, because that brings you in, get it and go all the way back around and come out. But
Okay,
for
because
the
my
residents,
concerns
the
are
residents
probably,
will come and go off from Messer Street.
my concerns are probably the same that you had, that tenants sometimes have additional cars that need a place to be parked. So you want to make sure that they don't take advantage of that city lot sitting
Well,
there.
it's going to be a managed property, so it's not going to be sold, right, Kevin? You're not selling units at this moment.
Isn't there another building like a Boy Scout clubhouse or something back there?
There is.
It's on the,
It's on the city.
it's on the city.
That's on the
parking-
city property.
parking,
That's
yes.
gonna remain,
As far as I know,
Yeah.
they talked about keeping it.
right?
I didn't know it was a Boy Scout building, but I saw it on the plans today, so.
Okay. Well, it used to be. Back in the day. All right, any other questions? All right, well, let's go to the public hearing then. 7:51 PM. Are there any abutters that wish to be heard?
Yes, please.
Oh, yes, who do we have?
Hi, my name's Mandy Hagan. Can you?
And I'm Ian
Oh,
Hagan.
hi.
Hi. I just had a couple of questions. We're not opposed to the project, but we would like a little bit of clarification, mostly relating to the parking. But before I get to that point, can you share what the rental rates will be for the project? A range,
I don't believe that's been determined yet.
but it will be all self-paying?
I'm sorry, self-paying?
Self-paying, is it any Section 8 housing going to be allowed?
Assisted living, or not assisted, but
No.
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 Okay, great. And is there any configurations on the size of the units? How many bedrooms in each one?
In the existing building, there will be 2 1-bedrooms and 6 2-bedrooms. And down in the lower level, if we do that, that'll be an additional 2 units with 1 bedroom in each unit.
Okay,
We need to
great.
do a little demo work. That's why we're just a little vague on down at that lower level. It does have windows that are blocked up. We plan on taking that out, but without doing a little demo work, I didn't want to commit to that lower level, but I want to bring it through the planning process.
And again, we've designed the parking to handle that if it happens. It'll be a couple extra parking spaces there if it doesn't.
Right. Just on the parking question, what is, how many spots per unit? 1.5?
1.5. But that is the
Yeah,
requirement.
standard.
We actually have one more than the 1.5, but it's 1.5.
Okay, good. Does that answer your question, Ms. Hagan?
I have just 2 more. Is there
Okay.
going to be any outdoor playground area for children?
No.
No, okay. And my last question is, would you consider putting up a fence? I know you have the pavement breakup. Would you consider putting up a fence going near to block off the city parking lot? And the reason why I ask this question is it's great to see all of the people coming into the community. We've been watching from our front porch. This weekend was Bob Marley, and it was great to see the city so active. The parking lot was full and people were parking on our property. So I feel like if there was a fence or a different kind of barrier, people would be less likely to utilize the city parking lot to park and walk over. Or and is there, to go along with that, is there going to be, where are the guests going to?
They probably won't park in the city lot and walk to their friend's house at your new building if there's a fence in the way, correct, Mandy?
right.
Correct.
A fence where?
I think she's looking. Yeah, something like this. So this way, if I'm visiting somebody in the new apartments, I'm not gonna park in the city parking lot. I'm probably gonna be less likely to park there and walk all the way around I won't park there at all.
I wasn't actually so concerned about the guests parking there. I was,
If you go to the proposed improvements plan, the only way they can get through there is right in here would be possible fencing,
Right.
but not down along the road area there. Won't be able to maintain it, the city won't be able to plow it. And it'll just become a nightmare for
So
maintenance.
it's possible in the back behind the church in that
That
area.
would be up to Kevin. You want to know where I'm talking, Kevin?
Mandy, just to clarify, what you're concerned about are people unknowingly parking on your property?
correct.
Can
Because our-
signage take care of that? Couldn't you put signs up instead of a fence?
No, not a fence on our property. I'm talking next to the new building where the.
I
where the-
understand that. If the goal is to keep people from parking in your spaces, you could use signage to mark those spaces as private, and not available.
Isn't there a city parking lot behind there that anybody could park in anyways?
There is,
And if I wanted to come visit somebody, I could park in the city parking lot.
right, but they have an area directly behind the Buzio Mansion where they have parking, and there's a garage, in
That's
fact.
all the way around to the other side where there's 4 spaces, I believe. Is that
Right.
what they're talking about?
No, I'm just talking about behind the Holy Trinity gym. If, I know you have the sidewalk or whatever you're gonna create, so you can't pull in there. My concern is that visitors and the people that live in that gymnasium part, are they still gonna park in the public parking and walk over? If there's a fence there, I was thinking it would defer people from parking over there. They would use their spots Because if you only have 22 spaces and then you have 6 2-bedrooms, and then all of those people have a friend over, are they gonna tie up that parking over on the Messer Street side?
I'm not
That's
sure you
my
can, we're
concern.
going to park in that city parking lot overnight, number one. Number two, we have the parking requirement for the number of units we have. So we aren't doing anything different than anybody else does in the city.
How many public parking spaces are there back there?
I didn't count them, but there's a lot.
That the city has, I believe, is 81.
81, okay. And would this proposed fence interfere with the public's access to that lot?
Well, I'm not sure we want to put a fence up there. We have plowing that's going to be coming up that
Right.
west side for that access into that public parking. We have plowing that's going to come in from the other side that plans on putting snow in there. We have a couple trees there to start with. We have a dumpster there that's going to be fenced. I'm not sure it's inviting in an open area, say, come on, walk through here.
Right.
But that doesn't mean someone might not walk through there, but again, I think anybody in the city has a right to go up there and park in that parking lot and go visit someone in that apartment complex if they wanted to.
Is that lot posted no overnight parking? Do you know?
I don't know what the city's planning on there. I have no idea.
Well, I think it's fair to say, Ms. Hagan, that the city can work with you on this issue. Obviously, you abut that public parking area. And again, I'm not sure that the fence idea is necessary if you can accomplish the same goal with signs. I mean, if there's places where you want to say no public parking, this is not a public parking space, or parking for your building only, something like that, that solves the problem. And if they're parked there illegally or overnight, then you can call in and have them towed. They're on your property. So I have a question for you, Ms. Hagan.
Sure.
I have a bureau that once was in that building when it was a rectory. And it's sitting on my front porch right now. It's pretty, it clearly made locally, solid wood. Are you interested? Because you can have it.
I would love it.
Okay.
Would you be offended if we painted it though?
No, well, you probably won't want to paint it. when
No,
you
is
see
it pretty?
But I'll give you a call tomorrow then.
Okay, that'd be great. And then my
Okay.
last question is, I just wanted to understand, I know you're going to be doing this in phases. At what phase does the parking come into play? Will that be part of phase 1 or phase 2?
Believe the parking will be there from the start, right?
Yeah.
Correct. The parking lot
Yeah.
will be constructed during phase 1.
Yeah, parking
It's just-
lot's gonna be constructed in phase 1. They're gonna demo the gym and put in the foundation for phase 2.
Great.
And then then they'll, hopefully, they'll get these apartments out and into the marketplace because of a lot of demand right now.
There sure is. We understand that.
All right, any
Great,
other
thank you so much.
questions?
Thank you.
Does the staff have any questions for Ms. Hagan? Okay. All right, thank you very much for calling in.
Thank you.
All right, is there anyone else that would like to be heard regarding this application? Any butters or members of the public? Nobody? Okay, close the public hearing at 8 p.m. We'll hear from Mr. Trefethan now.
Staff recommends that the board accept the application. And with the conditions attached, I would make some revisions to what we have. I would do the plan revision for December 7th of this year. The final plans for January 4th of 2022. And completion July 12th of 2023. That would be a full 2 years.
Okay.
If for some reason, because of the phasing issue, the rear addition is not started by July 12th of 23, then they would have to do an extension. But That's not an issue.
Gotcha.
And then all the other conditions would stay the same. Just for clarification, the 3 driveways that go in and out of the parking lot all have cross easements on them that allow the 3 property owners to use them, and I'm sorry, the 4 property owners, what will be 4 property
Right.
owners once this property transfers. It'll be this applicant, it'll be the city, it'll be the church, and it'll be the Buziel Mansion. The city acknowledges that we need to do some improvements to the parking lot, including deciding which of the driveways we want to have as entrance and which ones as exit.
We're gonna
But
ask
you
about
know, we're
that,
gonna
yeah.
plan to make one an entrance and whether the other 2 are exits or one is both and the other one is an exit only, it hasn't been determined yet. And if we need to put some signage up in the vicinity of the Hagen's property, we certainly can accomplish that.
It would seem reasonable to have the new driveway access off Messer Street one way in, because then if I'm not mistaken,
There's no entrance off the Messer Street into the
No.
parking lot.
oh, it just goes to the parking lot.
Just goes to.
It
the
doesn't
parking
go
lot.
all the way through. All
The
right.
the present thinking is that the driveway between the church and the school will be the in,
That's the way it's marked right now.
yes. And
The out is
and the-
along the library's line.
We would have
Correct,
to
and
know
then the
that
center
before we-
one will be, we're not sure whether it'll be an in or whether it'll be an out or will it be both. You know, that hasn't been determined yet, and it's not 100% determined that the current in will remain the in, but that's
that will
the
affect
thinking
their-
right now.
That will affect their dumpster access.
Well,
And-
It'll affect how we position it,
Correct.
because if we're coming in the other way, we're gonna turn the dumpster to be able to
Yeah.
come
Yeah.
in. So we'll need to coordinate with the city on that. It doesn't
Right.
change the location of the dumpster, it just changes how it'll be
So you don't
situated.
want to put anything in.
No, that's not,
Condition for
this
that.
is DPW's
Yeah,
ball
Yeah.
game.
it's their ball game. All right, any questions for staff?
So if you adopt staff recommendations, I would do it with the revised dates, please.
Okay,
What did you say the new completion date was?
A plan revision would be December 7th of this year.
Right.
C, final plans would be January 4th of next year. And D, completion would be July 12th of 23.
But that's, they said that they have up to 2 years to start phase 2.
Correct.
Wouldn't that be 2 years from July 2021?
That would be 2 years, and if they have not started the addition, they would have to get an extension.
Add to that. And also in the purchase and sales agreement, if I don't start the second addition, they have the right to assess it for $400,000. So there is an incentive for me to get the thing done. So just wanted to add that.
Some teeth in there, huh?
well, that's what happens when you have transparency in city government. All right, are there any other questions, comments?
I just one quick question for the
Soliloquies?
developer, if I may.
Sure.
Looking at the elevation, the tall vertical windows that look like they're kind of blocked out. I mean, that's the way they currently look, if I'm not mistaken. There's a practical reason for keeping them that way, I'm imagining.
Right.
I mean, they span 2 levels or,
I'm not sure why they ever blocked them up, or if those bigger panels were just part of the design. I don't see where there was ever windows there, but maybe there was. The smaller green ones what would be windows in the basement area, those were obviously blocked up with masonry and stuff, but those big panels, I'm not sure there was ever windows.
so there was no thinking of, replacing those with windows or anything like that? Even on that lower level?
In the lower level,
Yeah.
we're gonna replace some of those as we decide where the units are gonna go in.
So there may be windows
Right,
there.
there may be windows there, yes. There'll definitely be some windows because we want to get some light in there.
Yeah, sure.
But the bigger panels that are on the driveway side, those are staying.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Even have a cross motif on the elevation of the addition there. Okay, any other questions or comments? What is the pleasure of the board? Would someone like to make a motion that we approve?
I'll make a motion. We approve PL 2021-0097 SP and 0098 CUP with updated dates on staff recommendations.
Right, which was plan revisions by November,
December.
December of
7th.
2021. Final plans by
January 4th.
January 4th, 2022.
And completion July
Completion
12th.
date, July 12th, 2023.
Right.
Okay,
I'll second that.
all right, motion made and seconded. Any
Discussion?
Discussion?
Yes.
Yes. Oh, Charlie.
Yeah. Oh, Charlie. Yeah. First of all, I don't know who said they were going to give me a piece of the tree, but I'm not sure if that was said in humor or what that was all about. But I just want to say a couple things, and this is really directed not only to my fellow board members, but also to the developers, Stephen and et cetera. We spend a lot of time on this board telling people to plant trees or make something look better along streets, and I get all that. But we have here 2 trees actually that are, for all practical purposes, in downtown Laconia. We don't have a lot of trees in downtown Laconia. We have some on Main Street that are about to be taken down again because they don't live that well in the environment. It's a tough time for them with the salt and everything else that goes on. So here we have 2 trees that have survived the elements, and they're in good health and they look great. It'd be one thing if they were closer to the river, up towards Lake Opeechee or something like that, because there are trees everywhere up there, but not downtown. So my point is that, like a lot of cities do, I think we should be trying to preserve the good trees we have. And I understand, I'm very happy with the development of this property, what they're doing with it. But I just wish in the next few months, they would look at maybe trying to figure something out to save those 2. I was told, and Peter, since you mentioned I talked to you today, we talked about the fact that sometimes they have these machines that can move whole trees like that. And maybe they could replace the ones in the front that aren't doing that well if you look at them. But those are just my comments. I take this very serious, and I'm not alone. And obviously the planning board in a past time took these trees serious when they didn't allow the Dunkin' Donuts Corporation in paper not to cut down that oak tree up on Union Avenue. So this would not be the first time that the planning board has made requests like this. And I take it serious, guys. I just, I'm not some wacko tree hugger. That tree is a beautiful tree. Both of them are, and they've survived the elements to downtown Laconia. And again, I would hope that somehow a miracle happens in the next few months and that somebody can move a parking space, the city can give up a parking space, whatever, and they can save those 2 trees. I'm not going to vote no on this. I don't want to vote no, but I'm not going to vote yes. I'm just going to abstain. But that's the reason I'll be abstaining. I'm glad that this property is being used like it's being used. I just wish that we could do something about those trees. Thank
I have
you.
a question for Mr. Morissette. Would it be all right if Charlie got one of those machines and moved the tree somewhere else? So Charlie, there you go. You just
Yeah.
I've had DPS tell me they can do it, so.
Yeah, I don't
Talk to them.
I don't find that, I don't even find that comment in good taste, quite frankly. That's not what we're talking about here, but thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Charlie, no offense taken or given. All right. Any other discussion? All right, when we have the call of the roll.
Charlie Sinclair,
Abstain.
Scott McWilliam,
Yes.
Stacy Susie,
Yes.
Mike Delvecchio,
Yes.
Brett Melvin,
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Peter Burnett.
Yes. All right.
Thank you.
Go forth and multiply. Need the housing. What is the running tally? We approved a couple of big ones in the last few months. I know the building materials costs have gone through the roof. But how many units roughly do you recall, Dean, that we may have approved? We won't say since January.
Around 70, probably.
Yeah.
Most of them are not under construction yet, but
Yeah, well, and see, that is, I think, a problem because people are waiting for, hoping that the costs will come down, but.
Can't get a contractor either.
Really?
Well, they're in short supply.
but there are a couple of projects that have been approved for a long time that are very, very active and are building. Lilac Valley down off of Province. No, it's not Province Street, is it? Yeah, Province Street has built 37 houses this past year. They've got another 35 that they're starting shortly. And Aqua Vista has been building houses, as has Weirs Beach Village. You know, we've approved a number, and there have been a significant number that are in the process of being built from previous.
Prove Mr. Brouillard's.
Right, that was included in my.
That was how many units? 30 something?
It's 30, yeah, 35, 36 in Laconia. Yes,
Those, some of those will have lake views, won't they?
they will.
Because they're facing Winterswan.
They will.
All right, well, you know, there's where there's a demand, eventually there'll be some way to meet it. It's an incentive to build. So we hope that this housing shortage is something that the city can address. Okay, we are at 10 and we need to accept PL 2021-0099 SP 010 SU 0101 CUP steep slope 0102 CUP wetland buffer. My God, 0103 CUP cluster and 0104 vernal pool. My God, 0106 CUP cluster setback and 0106 CUP perimeter buffer. Okay. All we need to do is vote on acceptance tonight, not the waiver or anything, right?
Correct.
Is the application full and complete and ready for acceptance?
It is ready for acceptance. Just so you'll know, it is going to Conservation Commission again later this month, and TRC 2 next week. And you should be ready to go at your September meeting.
Where is this located? Endicott Street East?
This is the gardens at Winnipesaukee, Shaker Hill, among other names. Just above the, what is that, bumper boats?
Yeah.
Yeah, just above the bumper boats.
Right across from the substation.
Oh, not far from the fire department,
behind
right? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, and that's gonna be to construct 89 residential units.
Yes.
I like having you sit next to me. Okay,
That's your new job.
yeah, sit next to Peter and make sure he doesn't go off on off a tangent or something. And then over this one over
That
here,
ship sailed.
she gives me the look every now and then. All right. All right, so may we have a motion to accept that whole mouthful? that I just said. I think if you just said so moved, that would probably be good enough.
So moved.
So moved. Is there a
It's only.
Chief, do we have a second?
Second.
Second, okay, by Ms. Susie. Any discussion? Sensing none, may we have the call of the roll, please?
Yes.
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 Accept.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. All right, so that's been accepted. We look forward to seeing from it next.
Am I allowed to ask questions to
Yes.
staff
Sure,
during that time?
anytime.
On the traffic study, AITE generated,
American.
it is the acronym?
Yeah, International
Okay.
Traffic Consultants.
looked it
or
up and I wasn't
something-
sure
oh,
if it was a
something along that line.
misspelling.
Yes. no.
Okay. And then the second question is, I could not find the vernal pool.
I have found the vernal pool.
Because it's not wetland 1 through 4, right?
It
It's
is
in a
not.
separate.
It is separate, yes.
Saturday.
There's a couple other people that have asked to do a site walk, and I think that it might be beneficial that we do a site walk.
Do a sidewalk? Sure.
So I went out there with our conservation technician, Taylor Daigle. It is a hearty walk.
Steep slopes, right?
Not too bad on the slopes. If your desire is to just kind of get the lay of the land and see the major wetland that's in the center and the vernal pool, we can get you there fairly easily. There is a somewhat of a trail that is present. I will tell you that the last 50 feet to get to the vernal pool, you are going to be pushing brush aside and all that. But when we were out there a couple of weeks ago, there was water galore everywhere because we've, as you know,
It hasn't stopped raining.
we're all getting ready to build the ark. So there's plenty of water out there to be seen. I'm sure that we can arrange that with the applicant to do that if you so desire. I would like, if we're going to do that, I'd like to schedule it and post it, et cetera. I mean, it's not truly a meeting, but if we have the chance that we'd have a quorum show up for the site walk, then I would like to post it just to be on the safe side.
Well, yes, but I guess we could also just
Is it
refrain from
House
discussing.
77,
That, what?
that where it's located?
No.
No.
it's- I can show you where it's located.
Okay, that's all I needed. Okay, perfect.
It's in
Okay.
the Left-hand side of the wetland area.
Well, if you, so maybe you could set,
That's vernal.
yep, just set a date. And get permission from the property owner and invite us, and those that can go will.
Okay.
Maybe send Public Works out with a machete first.
Well, wear your boots, wear long pants,
Bring your tick spray.
bring your tick spray, et cetera, et cetera. It's like I say, it's not an easy walk going through there, but it's doable.
Okay, well, there we go. We used to do site visits all the time back in the day.
We'll get one for you.
I remember going up to Aqua Vista before they actually started up there and thinking, wow, this is gonna be something. All right, where are we? New business. All right, so appointment of planning board members and members at large to the CIP committee. Members at large that we've already apparently recruited are Gail Ober, Jane LaRoche, Paul Duggan, and Mike Foote. We need 3 board members to volunteer. I will be one of them.
So we only need 2 more.
Then we only need two more.
Two that aren't here tonight.
Charlie, St. Clair has already requested that he be appointed.
Charlie, thank you.
Oh, see, I was gonna pick him.
He was already ahead of you. So now we just need one more person.
Sarah's not here. She'd be perfect.
If nobody wants it, I'll do it.
Oh, lovely.
So Stacy, there we are. We have a volunteer. We don't have to draft somebody. That's good.
Much better.
So here's what I have to say about this. I've been on this committee for years and years. And the way it works is the city comes in, the departments come in and they present us with a list of capital improvements, purchases that they wish to, expenditures that they wish to incur. They have the list fairly prioritized when they present it, and then we set the priorities. We've been having some discussions in the master plan steering committee. We are in the process of beginning pretty much an extensive revision of that document. And one of the focuses right now is the housing shortage. Obviously, that's one of the things. But it's infrastructure. So I'll give you an example. Invariably, we have developers that come in and they're developing, new land far from existing neighborhoods, and they ask for a sidewalk waiver. And they say, look, we could build 100 feet of sidewalk on this street, but it will go nowhere. The nearest sidewalk is a mile away, half a mile away. So part of the problem then there is that the city isn't holding up their end of the log, so to speak. These sidewalks to nowhere should be connected up. That's an infrastructure thing. There are improvements necessary in many areas for not only the condition of roads, but underground utilities. I'd like to see the departments come to us with their suggestions for improving, expanding infrastructure. And I'd also throw out there, for public works sake, perhaps taking a look at Hilliard Road as a possible conduit for water, to bring water to Parade Road. And also, in so doing, perhaps include some utilities and improvements to Hilliard, which at this point is a Class 6 road. If not this year, then next year, but I understand the dilemmas that, very expensive equipment wears out. It needs to be replaced. There's always vehicles, there's always improvements to buildings. Sometimes it takes several years for a department to get something done because of the priorities set by the capital improvements plan committee. But as I said, this year, before they even come to us, I would like to see them present somewhere in the top 5 an infrastructure improvement that we need, that's possibly that might be possibly difficult to fund, but all we look at is the source of the fund. If it's water, there are enterprise funds, so we have that. But for everything else, we need to take an awful good look at that quadrant of the city, the big single family residential zone out there is never going to be developed in any way, shape, or form unless the city puts in some infrastructure. So that's my little speech for new business, and I'm open to comments from members of the board about my little speech.
You know, there's been in the past a number of sidewalk waivers granted by this board. And I would just share perhaps your feelings on this, kind of short-sighted, because ultimately these neighborhoods could be developed, and without sidewalks, it disincentivizes walking.
Well, yes, you're right. And part of the, one of the topics that we brought up in the Master Plan Steering Committee is for Laconia to develop a clear vision as to ways to make us a recreational location, not just for the boating in the lakes, but the infrastructure for bicycling and off-road vehicles and things of that sort. I mean, there's a real need for that. Even bike lanes on highways. We've talked a couple of times about Weirs Boulevard and the engineering problems involved in trying to widen that to put in a bike lane or a sidewalk. But if the city were to adopt a master plan that encouraged us to move towards being some sort of a recreational destination, we'd like that, so. Bye, Charlie. Drive carefully. It's on his way to Sturgis. So, all right. Is there any other new business?
Mr. Chair, we do need to have those
3 people identified.
3 and the 4 members at large appointed to the CIP committee by a vote.
So I would make a motion then that we appoint myself, Ms. Susie, and Charlie St. Clair as the planning board members, and the 4 at-large members would be Gail Ober, Jane LaRoche, Paul Duggan, and Mike Foote. Jane LaRoche, is she on? She's on ZBA, okay. Yes, okay. And Paul? His citizen?
Yep, just a citizen that likes to participate in government.
Cool. We should do more of that. We should have like, you know, a clubhouse or something we could all hang out in. All right.
City Hall.
I was gonna say we're
We can name
here.
This is our clubhouse. Well, you know, there's one behind Kevin's new place there on Church Street. I'm sorry. Old business. Oh, we need the motion.
Need to do both.
Yes. There was a second,
I'll second.
seconded by Mr. Delavecchia. Any discussion? All those in favor? No, we'll do the. We don't have to do a roll call? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank
Can I
you.
I'd like to just make a comment based on what you talked about before.
Sure.
I think that, kind of my wheels turning as far as, my capital budget presentation related to infrastructure growth. And I think that's a great idea. I think one of the questions that you'd want to ask, though, is also what does infrastructure growth mean to your department as far as what changes would need to be made?
Correct.
If we all of a sudden added, 500 living units, year-round living units in the north end, how does that change DPW, fire, police, school, So I think that that's something that, as those conversations go on, ideas for infrastructure growth is only half of it. What is its impact long-term for everybody? And I just think that that would be something.
Yes, and I
Have
think
to go
many
on.
infrastructure items are multi-departmental. For example, we want more fire hydrants. We're going to work with waterworks on that. Sprinkler systems, that sort of thing.
Agreed.
Yep. So, and again, I mean, I've heard DPW say, I think 2 meetings, in a row, the last 2 years, that we only have X amount of money for road, street repairs every year. You know, we're a tax cap community. And if it's like $1 million, that's not a lot. That's, you know what I mean? I mean, how many millions were spent on Court Street when that was done? Or, oh my God, did you see Hill Street when the rain hit it last week? So, and then that's a waterworks and public works joint project, right?
Yes, yes.
And then, of course, you've got hydrants up there. So there are a lot of interconnected things there, but I think what we were getting at in the master plan meetings was infrastructure is important, not just for new development in existing residential zones, but for infill development in the urban core. It's important that there be, in many cases, some upgrades, for example, to utilities in the downtown area. So anyway, and is there anything else on that I didn't mean to like dominate the conversation? All right, old business, review of impact fees.
So periodically, we need to review the impact fees. And I have been requested by the city manager to bring it up. There is some interest at the city council level to possibly do some revisions to the impact fees. I handed out a spreadsheet to you. I want to draw your attention to the next to last column, from the right, at the right, the total fee schedule. So for instance, for a single family detached home, it's $7,630. That was, and then you can see the similar amounts for the other kinds of things. These numbers and how it gets parceled out to the various departments were arrived at a little bit longer than 10 years ago, when the city hired a consultant to look at these matters and come up with what should the fee schedule be and how does it get prorated to school, police, fire, et cetera. In order for us to change the numbers in that column, and therefore maybe the numbers in the previous columns before that, would require us hiring a consultant again and going through a very lengthy process. And that would be a $10,000 to $20,000 fee for these consultants. So I'm recommending that we do not do that, but rather we concentrate on the last column, which is the 25% column. That number was arrived at after some negotiations 10 years ago by the city council. They decided that, for example, for a single family home, that $7,600 is too much for an impact fee. Let's set it at 25%. As you remember, 10 years ago, we were just barely coming out of the housing recession of 2009. So there was a feeling that, we need to keep things reasonable. We did look at this in 2017 and did not make any changes or recommend any changes. What I would recommend to the planning board, and hopefully you would agree, and this is what we would recommend to the city council, is that we adjust the 25% number. That is completely within the power of the city council. It does not require us going back and hiring a consultant and everything. All the other numbers stay the same. We just change whatever percentage, because that was more or less, I hate to use this word sometimes, but it was more or less an arbitrary number in that this is what we think is an acceptable number.
Correct.
So therefore let's do 25%. So we could recommend, as an example, and I'm not wedded to any of these numbers, but we could recommend that the city council go to 35% or 40%, whatever we feel is a good number. And then with the added recommendation that every year it increases by 5%, so that you, over a period of 5 years, for the next 5 years, you would now get to your point where you're at 60, 65% of this number, whatever it turns out to be. So I would, that would be part of the recommendation. And like I say, it could be 35%, could be 40%. The housing market is red hot right now. Adding another, $500 or $600 or whatever it turns out to be onto these numbers, I don't believe we're going to stop anybody from doing anything. They are what they are,
Two questions.
Yes.
Could the city council eliminate that column? No,
They could,
no discount.
yes, they could eliminate it. We could go to 100%. Yes, they could.
Could the Lakes Region Planning Commission do the study?
Potentially, I know 10 years ago, I don't remember the name of the person that got hired, but it was not someone associated with Lakes Region Planning. I don't know the answer to that question. They will charge us extra over and above our annual fees regardless. It may not be as much as the full-blown
They'll work with
consultant,
us.
but
They'll work with us on
yeah,
that.
but it would be an additional fee. And we could go that route. It's just there's a timing, it's going to take some time to do that study and come up with what should be the numbers for the various departments. And
Well, what do you think then of just, you're suggesting we just bring the 25% column
to another number.
to another number, or eliminate it altogether?
That might be a pretty drastic shock for our builders in town.
It
So
might also be no other time as this is probably one of the best times to do it because of the housing shortage.
Yeah.
And then on the downside, well, will that discourage new development? Well, no, because the rising values of real estate have been pretty steadily rising every year now for the last 5 years.
you could do that. I personally, I think
phasing it is better.
some type of a increase that is fairly substantial, and then an increase of 5% additional for the next 5 years after that. Personally, I think that's the way to go in terms of.
Do you want us to have a
easing it.
specific proposal and vote on it, or?
I would like to get to that. Yep. Let me continue if you don't mind. So couple other changes under the multifamily structure, 3+ units row, $1,740. That is not per unit. That is period. So if you have a 3-family structure, or whether you build a 16-unit structure, it's $1,740. I would recommend that we change that to be per unit. Because if you look at, the two unit structure cost.
Right.
And the manufactured housing, it doesn't seem to be a rhyme or a reason there. So
the 2-unit structure would actually cost more on this table than a 3-unit structure.
or a 10-unit structure, right? Which
Right, gotcha.
makes sense.
So
Right.
per unit makes sense.
Yeah, and I mean, to be
Right.
fair, let's use the condos at the Barton Motel redevelopment. An 8-unit building there is not going to generate very many school-aged children, probably none. But never say never, you may get 1 or 2 students when you're fully built out, okay? But it would be very, very low. So I think that's part of the reason why that was kind of the way it is, but multifamily buildings of more than 3 or 4 units do not generate a significant number of school-aged children. They do generate other needs for services, such as police and fire and recreation, but not school. So, but anyway, so I think I think we want to amend that to say per unit as opposed to period. And then I think below that, on the double dark line there, on the non-residential development,
It's per square foot.
that is per square foot. Again, if we go to say 40%, we're going to get an increase on that as we go along.
Okay.
But we could do a different number completely for the for the non-residential. We could say 40 for residential and 50 for the non-residential, whatever you want to recommend, but there's a couple of options there. So my recommendation would be to go to 40% immediately and then 5% per year for the next 5 years, which would get you to 65% in 5 years.
Or you could go to 50.
Yes, you could, and
and
then you
go
could
up.
be 75% in 5
Yeah.
years, right, yes. And probably do the same with the non-residential, just go to 50% and do the 5% per year.
5% per annum until we get to 75.
Correct.
Well, we could just in theory keep going to 100, couldn't we?
We could. And of course, at any point in time, this would be, the planning board and or the city council could revisit that. If in 5 years, things are still going great guns, and then maybe you do another amendment and keep going. If in 2 years from now, the bottom falls out of the real estate market, then you can always revisit it and either put a halt to the percentages or reduce them again, whatever you feel is appropriate at the time. This is not chiseled in stone.
Does the planning board have authority to waive impact fees?
Under some circumstances within the, it's not the entire UC zone, but the downtown area, if they're doing infill, so in other words, if it's a vacant lot and they're rebuilding, or if they're doing substantial rehabilitation, reuse of a building that's either underutilized or empty, say Masonic Temple would be a perfect example. If somebody wanted to go in and completely refit that out, they can ask for an 80% reduction and you guys can grant that, the 80% reduction in the impact fee.
I think we've done that.
You
before,
have done that multiple times, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So, someone comes in and if they're staring at a bill of just to make the math easy,
100,000.
well, 20,000 in impact fee, and you say, we'll give you the 80% reduction because you're infill or your reuse, then they go down to 1,600 or whatever that. Yeah, whatever, anyway.
I've always wondered, you mentioned that building, why that has not. It's a great building. There's a lot of open space in there. There's an auditorium up there that they don't use.
I have a question here.
Yep.
When this report was done, and this 10 years ago, the total fee schedule, that figure right there, what does that actually represent? That represents what that entity is going to add stress onto those services?
That's the idea.
Yeah, so the $7,600 is the 38 for schools, 312 for police, 716 for fire.
That's
So-
just taking some kind of historic data and saying that normally a single family detached house will have an average of so many kids that will attend the school and the police get called out there. So then my next question is, when we say this is how much it basically costs the town, but we're only going to make them pay 25%, the taxpayers pay the other 75%, right?
Yeah, the
So the
short answer,
developers are putting money in their pocket, taking it out of my pocket.
the short answer is.
I say go to 100% right now.
Saw that coming.
Short
And
answer
go
is-
up 5% every year.
I don't know if we can do that, but you could go to the 100% immediate.
Well,
So yes,
it would be up to the city council to
yes,
do
it would be. So you can, how big of a bite do you want to make or present to the city council, and they're free to do what they will with the recommendation.
I say we eliminate the column.
The time's not gonna get any hotter than it is for the real estate market.
Right.
Than it is right now. So if you're gonna change it, now's the time to do it.
If I'm not mistaken, the column was a reflection of the fact, was try to lessen the blow, shall we say.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Politically and for other reasons, but I'm looking at this and I'm saying, look, these numbers are still fair. They're probably on the low side, because they haven't been updated.
Oh, yeah,
for a
they're
long time.
10-year-old numbers for sure.
They
So-
would probably be 25%
So I would,
at today's rate.
if I would suggest that we vote to eliminate the 25% column. Go to 100. I think it makes sense. And then we still have the waiver power. So that if it does cause an unfair hardship or if it impedes the development itself in some way, we have the power to waive it. don't
Well,
we?
within certain circumstances. So for instance, Mountain Lake Village, you cannot waive.
Right.
Aqua Vista, you cannot waive.
I think
But if something within the downtown area, Masonic Building, just because that's one of my favorite examples.
Right.
Because it's such an obvious, it's the 800-pound gorilla in downtown.
Right.
That if someone wanted to do something with that, absolutely, we would encourage you to waive the impact fees to the 80%. Yeah.
Right. So but that satisfies the need, I think.
Didn't we waive some of the impact fees for the Lakeport Opera House? Because they were basically renovating the building. They
Yes, it
weren't-
was,
and
we
gave them like
did because of
65%
because of reuse. Yes.
reuse, yeah.
Yeah.
So if we eliminate the column and just make clear that the board will still have discretion to grant waivers.
In some instances, yes.
And
Well,
if the bottom
maybe list
falls
what
out
those
into-
instances are in the motion or whatever.
They're in the ordinance, which.
They are in the ordinance
Yes,
already.
yeah.
So really, the only thing we need to do is vote on, do we double it? Do we change the 25%, recommend that they change the 25%? Or
Well,
do we
you know,
go to,
I recognize, it's a hot real estate market. We all know that. But, on the one hand, you're saying, well, we need housing, but wouldn't this be somewhat counterproductive?
yeah, well, there's
To
that.
eliminate, I mean, it's a big bite. I think what Director Dean is suggesting is like a incremental phase in, it's not so scary.
Well, how about,
But look at what Kevin thought. He thought that fee was per unit at first.
Probably, yes.
So he's
So-
kind of
so-
expecting
so
a
the-
huge
the-
bill.
Yeah, the other thing about phasing in, I'm not wedded to this, but the other thing about phasing in, people who have already been approved for projects, we collect the impact fee at certificate of occupancy, not when they take out a building permit or not when we approve
right,
the project. So,
So it can't be grandfathered?
no, it's, I mean, when we specify the impact fee, it's the impact fee that's in effect at the time they take out the certificate of occupancy. So somebody like Lilac Valley, which is doing affordable housing, very affordable housing. This would be, this would be quite an impact to them.
Surprise.
Whereas the phasing in, and I get, the phasing in kind of mitigates that. And before too long, you don't have previously approved projects hanging out there, or very many of them. They would be under the new one, but that's.
so what about if it was 50 and 10 per year? Then we'd be at 100% in 5 years.
It would also motivate people to get their projects done quicker.
Yeah, because that's what we really need is new housing starts, and we need them. And we don't want to end up like Lincoln did in the 80s when they overbuilt because they went crazy in the mortgage companies were giving them discounts. So
Yep.
they ended up with like hundreds of empty units up there.
Yep.
I don't see that happening here. I think this county is quite a bit different than that. And as I've said many times, anything we can do to encourage affordable housing in the downtown core, especially for the elderly and the disabled, is a great benefit to them because they've got a supermarket, they've got drugstores, they can, you know what I mean? Everything is within walking distance for them. Or wheelchair distance.
If you're encouraging though, I mean, I tend to agree a little bit that, encouragement, but when you're looking at, let's just take the $7,000 for a multifamily at a 15-unit building, that's the housing you are looking and talking about, it's a big chunk of money at the end of the day.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
So, you know, I mean, it's just something we have to think about it if, you know, if you're gonna look one direction versus the other, so.
Well, I was on the board back, what, 20 years, 10, 20 years ago, when we first did impact fees, and there was a lot of opposition to it at first. But it's a good way to answer the occasional letter writer that says, I don't understand why, you know, I don't have any kids in school and I have to pay a school tax and blah, blah, blah. Well, sir, that, you know, what we do is we adjust it, you know, at the time the impact fee is imposed. That's why there are a lot of NAs in the non-residential per square foot, because they don't have any.
When would these proposed changes take effect?
It would be up to the city council to,
Do you think the
Set a
fire
date.
numbers are as they are, do they need updating?
I'd have to sit down and look at them a little closer and talk to Dean before I
So,
make any
so
decisions like that.
we don't have to do a full study if the chief or a chief in conjunction with, say, the state fire marshal were to make a recommendation that it go up.
my understanding of the
The statute.
statute is you have to do a full-blown study of all the numbers, which would include fire, to make any adjustments to what you're seeing in the individual columns. The only
That's the
thing under our purview is the 25% or whatever number.
We have room to make adjustments to increase what we're getting without having to spend $20,000 on a survey. I wouldn't be in favor of
Right.
spending, you know,
If you go to 50,
thousands of
if
dollars
you
for
go
no
to
reason.
50%, Kirk and everybody else is going to get double what they're getting right now.
Maybe when we do capital improvements plan committee this year, we could include this.
Okay.
Each of the departments could come in, look at this table and say, you know, should it be adjusted up or down?
Good idea.
And that way, I like that too, because that ties into the infrastructure thing.
Has the city council talked about this at all?
It has been talked of very briefly that they want us to make a recommendation to them, which is why I'm doing this right now.
But no feeling on what they are. Where's Bruce at?
Oh, I think they want, I think they are. I think they're receptive to increasing them. It's how you go about doing it that is the question.
Non-tax revenue, baby.
I can probably comfortably speak for the other department heads to say that if we were gonna try to come up with this in the next 2 months to how it affects our department, that we would need some one-on-one sit-down time with you and whoever you choose, you know, whether it be the manager or Glenn or somebody, and just say what, you know, give us a little bit of time on, you know, exactly what it pays for, exactly how this work, how did this affect your department, so we can make that determination. You know, if you've never had to deal with them, adjustment would take some.
You may
know,
be able
take
to
some-
find some standard, even a cost of living adjustment that you could apply across the board. You know, some measure of inflation, for example. And this was, you know, with the census completed, there's a lot of new data there too.
Oh, I don't think it's impossible to do. I just think it would take some sit-down time to
Yep.
make sure that we're, you know, all the department heads are talking in the same direction and, you know, kind of thinking
So
the same.
why don't we
same
table
way.
this for until the next meeting? You're looking at me over your glasses again. Why do you need a vote tonight? Just.
Because
Let's send something
because
to
my
the
boss
council.
told me to.
But the thing about that,
No,
though,
his
is
boss
too,
is
like
the city
Kirk's
manager.
talking about, the more they spend, the more time they spend, that's the $10,000-$20,000 in the study. Is all the department heads spending hours of their salary trying to look at this. Yeah, we might get a better target sum, but the target sum might be 150% what this total cost is now, because the way inflation's gone up in the past 10 years and the price of everything. Why don't we just, even if we up it to 50 and say go up 5 every year, we're taking in twice as much money. So we're gonna be better off. We might still not be making ends meet, but we're gonna be twice as good as we were.
Is that your motion?
I would agree. I mean, the way these library, fire, police have been out, how those were allocated, that was determined by a professional consultant as far as that share that each department. So I don't know, do we need to mess with that? A more expedient way would be, as you suggest, just change the percentage.
Slowly get up to 100%.
Yes.
I don't understand why the townhouse is so cheap.
And by the time we get to 100%, that's gonna
what
be
experts
10 years
said.
down the road, more than 10 years down the road. Then we're really gonna have to look at what the services are putting out to support each of these entities at that point.
Well,
And that,
yeah.
and the review then will be $100,000.
It could be reviewed anywhere along, and I would agree the per project makes more sense on the multifamily structure, 3+ units. Per unit, excuse me, makes more sense than per project, certainly, as a added adjustment.
So I think we got a motion out there from Mr. Belleville.
I think I heard a motion.
Yeah,
as
that was
well.
50. We'll go to 50 and an increase
10 each year.
of 5,
Yes.
10,
10.
10 each year.
And
Oh, 10.
the multifamily is per unit, per change per unit instead of.
Oh, so we're gonna get to 100 by 5 years then, is that it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because like Dean said, if the bottom falls out in 2 years,
We can
we
review it.
revisit it and
Yes.
say, hey, people aren't, well, is that the reason people aren't developing is because the bottom fell out, or is it because the impact fees?
Right.
Undoubtedly.
Right,
I
right
doubt it would
now,
be the
we could
impact.
go 1,000% on these and people would still be developing. Because a lot of this stuff that we've done, it's not very affordable housing. And those developers are making money. And sure, if there's 50 units and they have to pay per unit, that's gonna be a big lump. But they're making 50
not bothering
times
them
the
right now, is it?
profit coming in from those.
Well, we need, and it's a good point. We do need affordable housing. In my neighborhood, we've got roughly 30 people have been given notice of eviction. And there is no place to go. And I have a friend that lives across the street. She's been following up every single lead. She's been going to CAP. She's been reading the paper. And by the time she gets to an apartment, it's already been rented. And it was just posted. And the other thing about that bothers me in a way, is that those 2 buildings that we're talking about, 79 Elm and what is it, 24 4th Street, they form like an L and they have a common parking lot across the street from my house, were bought at least partly with public funds. And then by Elsenheim Place, they had a community development block grant in 2010 or 2011. So there was public funds in it. All the tenants are Section 8, every single one of them. So they got to find, Section 8 housing somewhere. They call it different now, some sort of voucher system. Community Action Program merged with Ozanam Place, acquired all its assets, and then sold those 2 buildings for $1 million to Scott Everett, and then made no plans whatsoever for the people that live there. And it just boggles the mind. I mean, isn't the Community Action Program supposed to assist people in finding housing? They just take the $1 million and do what? Are they going to build a affordable housing village somewhere?
I would hope so.
Well, great, but that's not going to help the people that are being displaced this year. The moratorium expired Saturday. There was a federal CDC eviction moratorium. So these people in my neighborhood, they're probably not going to be in any danger for a couple of months because the floodgates are open right now. That I would guarantee the district division of the circuit court is already buried in landlord-tenant matters, because landlords have been waiting for the ability to evict tenants that probably haven't paid a dime in rent in a year. I get that, I understand that, but it's not the number of units that could possibly get certificates of occupancy in time to help those people, it's probably negligible, right? We don't have, there were big ones in the works, but in the meantime.
And the last thing we need is more homeless.
Well, and yet, yes, and the mayor started a homelessness task force that met twice and did nothing. So, we're still right back at it. And there are people in my neighborhood that literally have no family. They have no place to go. Absolutely none. The only thing they can do is ask the court to give them a 90-day extension if the writ is to be issued. So I don't know. There's not much we can do about that. I mean, we talked about it at master plan. We have to take care of the least of our people as well. The people that have the least means. I remember when we approved I still call it Barton's. What is the actual name of that development?
August Bay.
Lakeside at Pogus Bay.
Lakeside at Pogus Bay. We calculated, how much it would add to the tax base. It was like $7 million or something ridiculous. And the price of the units have gone up since then, if I heard correctly. I bet nobody in my neighborhood's gonna be able to go in there. And we heard tonight from a developer that it wasn't going to be, the new development wasn't going to be Section 8. I mean, my idea for that building before the city sold it was that we use it to house the homeless and provide services on site and assistance with acquiring permanent housing. But how much does the city sell it for?
$1.
I didn't know about that bidding. When was that?
I would have bid too.
We had a bid for $2.
So
But
it
it-
charges you.
But it was a use that the city council did not want to see there.
Oh, yeah.
I'd have been 10 at least. Okay, well, we usually went kind of far afield because we had a little extra time tonight.
So what was my final
Yeah,
motion?
may the member
What was-
repeat the motion?
What was my final?
50 and
50% going up 10% a year for 5 years.
10%.
And then changing the multifamily 3+ units to per unit instead of total.
All right.
Second.
How
Scott.
is that gonna work though? When we just told Kevin it was per project.
That was then, this is now.
They'll get a postcard in the mail.
He'll be notified.
And
Get it done.
besides, council may decide to do something entirely different.
They may.
So we don't.
Yep,
So you're referring this to council.
yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
do they just approve or disapprove, or can they say, we're gonna approve it, but we only want it to go up 5 a year?
They could change the
They
numbers.
can change it. They have to,
Why don't they do that?
ours is
Never mind.
only a recommendation, but
Following the process.
Yeah.
yeah,
So we vote. on
we
that?
fill the bucket and Dean has to carry it to the city council. That's what we do. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Sensing none, may we have a call of the roll, please?
No, raise your hand. Charlie's not here.
Oh, we don't have to do the call. That's right. All those in favor, raise your hand. Opposed? Looks like it was unanimous. So a little bit more than you asked for, but
That's fine.
hey, we can take the heat for that. Where am I? We're at liaison reports, if I'm not mistaken, right? Planning Department report.
Yes. Make it brief. We've been working with the new Domino's building to get their street trees installed, and they have done that finally.
Yep.
And we are working with the property owner across the street, which has had several trees die. And after some reluctance, they have agreed that they're going to be replacing them.
7 Gables.
Yes,
Yeah.
so hopefully that'll be soon. And have a request from Charlie to let you know about what's going on with the Historic District Commission in that, as you know, they have recommended a significant expansion of the district to include all of the traditional downtown area and then some. That has run into a little bit of a roadblock at the city council level. In the meantime, they are working on an informational program. They want to reach out to the property and business owners within the downtown area to explain their envisions for a district in terms of how they want to manage the district. And they want to allay fears that some people have brought up concerning paint colors and doorknobs and all those kinds of things. And I want to make it very clear that the word doorknob is not in the Historic District Commission ordinance at all. It is not under consideration ever. Paint is, but.
What about construction technique?
Yes. So that's what's going on with the Historic District Commission. And the city council is going to be doing some type of review of the actual ordinance in terms of language over the next couple of months.
Okay. Well, that sounds good. Lakes Region Planning Commission. Let's see, last meeting was a presentation.
Telemarketing, telecommunications.
Telecommunications, oh, yeah. I didn't, it was very interesting. It was about the improvements to broadband wireless, the main cores, the fiber optic cables that connect up the various sectors. I guess this, is that the way they used it? The state is divided up into sectors and connected by these trunk lines.
The irony was that my power went out and I was sitting in the dark for the entire thing.
But the internet was still working, right?
I have nothing, nothing at all.
There was a story from years ago, and I don't know if it's true or not, or apocryphal, about a guy that was working as one of those computer help line guys, you know, you call Dell and they tell you. And he went through this whole thing about, did you try? Did you hit the reset button? Did you do all that? And then he says, well, you check the cables in the back. And she says, well, I really can't because there's no lights. And he said, what do you mean there's no lights? Well, the power's out. Okay, well, maybe call us back when the power comes back and I'll show you how to turn it on. So it's perhaps apocryphal, but I've always remembered that as funny. You don't have to laugh. All right, conservation.
The big one is the gardens, which is coming up next month. And, but conservation has gone over it repeatedly. So what is coming forward is one that has been hashed over quite a bit.
I put in my calendar something about their meeting next Monday regarding the state school property. Is it going to be on the city council agenda or something? Let me see.
Oh, yes, the
council.
the council has
Oh,
has
yes.
invited the executive counselor
Kenny.
to be
Yes.
there, and the chairman of the redevelopment commission will be there as well for
George
them
Ball.
to discuss with the council the state school property. Yes.
So I would urge any of you to put it, that's Monday, the 9th, let's say 7 o'clock. We need to have a seat at that table. The governor has taken the authority on himself. Despite the efforts of the committee, of the commission, which was, you know, nonpartisan, et cetera. So it would be good if they could convince the city council to take a strong stand on certain issues. And again, infrastructure, infrastructure, infrastructure. Can't do anything up there without completely replacing the sewer and water system up there. And that brings us back also to the idea of running a line along Hilliard Road to bring water up to the top of the hill, which is above that site. You know, I think that's brilliant. Hilliard Road pretty much intersects with 107, 106 or Parade Road, pretty much at the high point, right? I mean, it's downhill to Meredith in that direction, downhill to Laconia in the other, roughly.
More or less.
Yeah,
yeah.
but the state school property comes back up quite a bit.
It's probably the same elevation, I would think. Slightly less. I don't know. I don't have an altimeter in my car, but I'm gonna get one. Any,
Use your phone.
is there an app for
I
that?
think the compass will tell you.
You
I
could
think
go
the-
Google Earth and just zoom in on a point and it shows you the elevation.
Mother of
Well, they think up next.
No, really? That isn't, there's an app for that. That's a punchline. All right. Did we run out of paper here? Is there a 15?
Yes, there is.
Ah. Well, we can't hear from the city council. Because, was Bruce elsewhere or we were expecting him?
Yes.
I hope he's okay. Give him a ring. Historic District Commission, we just covered that. Any other business?
An updated list of people that are members. Mine is very old.
Planning board members?
I didn't get one. I was here. Yeah.
Email it to me too.
Yeah, I
'cause
wasn't here.
I have,
Middle of your
I have
packet.
two. I have two.
No,
was
I
thinking of you
gave
guys.
her
You
Mine.
have
mine
two.
Yes, I
There's
have
mine.
because my expiration date was wrong.
Peter, other business, can you give us an update on the big dig?
That was last month. And she was here because we voted her vice chair.
Couldn't help it.
It was in the
How could you
middle of your
forget?
packet.
I
After we
could,
adjourned.
Back through
But-
your packet.
but I think we'd probably rather
Not there.
adjourn.
Yeah. I went by today and they were pumping concrete, so.
Yeah, well, it's pretty intricate. I mean, I've enjoyed watching the project. And I will say one thing is that, you know, as you know, I was concerned about my cherry trees. Leslie Robertson's Sons from Belmont was the contractor that did the sheet piles along my property line. And you wouldn't believe the lengths they went to prevent damage to the trees. They only had to cut one branch, the longest one, and the others, they simply swung the steel in, pushed the branches up, and then dropped the steel down. So, and then eventually they drove it in below the crowns. So, and eventually they're gonna actually cut all that stuff off below ground level. So there's, it's moving. It's going in the right direction. They're doing footings now. I guess the footings for a steel and concrete building are rather substantial. So I'm learning every day. Is there any other business? Well, that's not business. So
We have motion in a second.
we have a motion to adjourn and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.